Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. It is your host Hage Samurai here, and yeah, you guys saw the thumbnails. We are here to what if Asta had Acnologia's powers. Yes, I've been wanting to do this what if for a while now, and I'm honestly like excited for it. So I'm not gonna lie to you, if you guys have seen a track record of me doing fairy tale what ifs, which actually looking back on it, I've only done like one. I only done one of them, and it got deleted because honestly, it was not even that good. So you guys can tell I had a pretty hard case, of trying to figure out like exactly how to do these type of stories. But I finally have figured it out after so long. And it is not the only what if that's gonna pop up with fairy tale in it, but the other one is gonna be released tomorrow. And if you guys don't know, just wanted to let you guys know with this announcement that, let me see, I believe maybe on Thursday or Friday, I will not be able to post on either Thursday or Friday. And the reason for this is because my parents want me to go on a trip, and I have to do the trip. But do not worry, I still plan to get back into my schedule, so don't worry, like right around Monday, I should be going back to the regular schedule. But I mean, hey, at least on Wednesday, you still have a video to watch. Yeah, on Wednesday and maybe on Thursday, maybe. But Wednesday, definitely, you will get a video. So you guys don't have to worry about that. And either way, why don't we sit here and actually enjoy this part to the what if. Again, thank you guys very much for the support. And either way, let's get started. I'm so excited.
You're never gonna make it, you're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different? Man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many obstacles, you gotta stop it, yo. You gotta take it slow, you can't be a pro. Don't waste your time no more. Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do?
Alright guys, let's get started with this what if. But first things first, let me just change the recording process right here. Okay, there. I'm not editing this part out. Okay. Now, let's begin. So we now start off where we now see a baby Asta, who currently right now was just, honestly, he was in the middle of nowhere. He was currently just laying down, enjoying his time, as he was literally just left in the forest. As Asta was there, this one suddenly he would then be approached by a hooded figure who ends up walking towards the young child. To see someone so small and weak, it must be quite pitiful existence, isn't it? He would say. At this, Asta would of course be looking at the man. As the man would look at Asta, Asta would then send the man a challenging smirk as he begins giggling at the man's face. At this, the man honestly looks at Asta with a blank expression until he ends up chuckling as well. To think, if this was another world, most would be fearing to even look at me. At this, he ends up actually picking up the small child. As Asta, as soon as he's on the man's arm, he would then instantly begin to grab onto it, as he ends up biting it on the man's finger until eventually he ends up sucking on it, until eventually falling asleep. The man looks at the young child laughing as he ends up saying that he's instantly a fighter too. As this one, we then suddenly see the man's hood begin to get pulled off by the wind, as we see him, Acnologia. Now, I believe it's time for some clarification of how all this went down. In the original timeline, Natsu had actually been the one to defeat Acnologia after combining all the powers of the Dragon Slayers, or how I like to call it, the power of anime friendship or whatever. Either way, in that timeline, yeah, he was just vanquished, but I'm gonna say things end up differently here. Since I'm the what ifer, I can go ahead and change that. Either way, in this one, Acnologia was not killed off. Instead, he was actually sent packing. Legit sent flying and kicked out of the own pocket dimension. And due to this, he was literally just drifting through multiple dimensions while being unconscious. It wasn't until a few years later Acnologia would wake up, but he was no longer in his world. He was instantly able to sense this too, considering the fact that he still had his dragon senses, which was extremely strong, allowing him to smell the air, and he's already able to sense that the mana here was completely different from that over there of the world of fairy tale. However, things would be a kind of difficult here, considering the fact that although he will still be able to like replenish his magic and everything, there was one small problem. And that was the fact that Acnologia was nowhere near the power that he once was. Like, bro, this man had his arm was already gone right before he entered in here. Then he had to fight against Natsu. That already gave him like heavy damage. The fight between those two had given him an extreme amount of damage. And not only that, he had to travel through different universes, which literally I mean, if it was a normal body, they would die instantly. But since Acnologia was literally has like his body is like way stronger than a normal human's, then it caused him to not exactly die, but take extreme severe damage, leaving him sort of a shell of what he once was. As Acnologia would look at his weak body, he would eventually be able to pick himself up, albeit with some difficulty. And for the rest of his years, as this was a few years ago, he'll be traveling around the land. He made no confrontation with humans. He had stayed away from them. He had to continue learning and learning about the land, as he got this from actually, going to different towns, picking up some books, not that he ever told anyone. And over time, years and years would pass by as the man would eventually end up aging. As by the time that it was all over, which by the way, at this point, Acnologia does not have immortality or anything like that. He's actually able to age and die. But after living for quite a long time, which by the way, this happened this happened after the events of the Wizard King. So that means the legend and all that stuff, that thing has been told throughout the entire land. So he hears of it, but he wasn't a part of it, just to let you guys know. But still, after traveling around Acnologia, he would eventually find peace within himself. It was a long and treacherous journey, but he eventually found it. And due to this, he had sort of gone on with his life. He still never made really any confrontation with humans because he's just not like that. But he at least find a way to where he doesn't want to cause havoc or destruction. And although he does a good challenge, he's not always bloodthirsty for a battle. It's all that rage and anger that he once had finally found peace within himself. But back to it. As Acnologia would cradle the young Asta in his arms, he would look around to see maybe if his parents was nearby, but unfortunately he found none of it. However, from the smell that he was able to pick up from the air, he could already tell that something was very clearly wrong here. At this, it wasn't long until finally, after smelling around, he was able to sense and even tell that there must have been a battle or something must have happened, as he could already smell blood, literally blood on the blanket that Asta was having. At this, he looks down at the young Asta, as he could already tell that his mother had passed away. Well, I guess there's nothing much I can do about that. Sorry, young one. As he tries to let go of Asta and put him back into his crate and walk away, Acnologia will find himself actually not able to, as Asta was holding on to him as if he was a lifeline or something. As he continues trying to remove Asta from his hand, as eventually he's able to actually get one of Asta's arm away from him, Asta once again grab onto it with more force. At this, Acnologia sighs as he ends up looking at the young Asta, who once again gives him a peaceful smile as he sleeps and snuggles into his arm. Well, I guess I'm stuck with you then, huh? As Acnologia could tell that Asta was going to be a very stubborn child, and so honestly, he's not going to lie to you. Maybe it was because of the fact that he finally found peace, or maybe it's because of the fact that even though he literally has, there was a time when he pretty much thought of humans nothing more as insects, he does remember that he once was a human as well. And due to this, Acnologia, after a while, he then decides that heck, screw it. He was going to take Asta with him. After all, it seems as if the child was not going to leave him alone. And honestly, well, Asta was a fighter. There was no way he was just going to just let him leave. So with that being said, Acnologia then takes Asta's small little baby basket, as he would then walk away with the young child in his arms. Now, this is where we're going to have a flash forward or a time skip. Raising the young Asta, Acnologia would once again begin to sort of tap into the side of humanity that he once had. Before the whole events of... If you guys seen Acnologia's backstory, it's honestly pretty fucked up. But yeah, he would once again begin to tap into it as Asta would continue to grow up to be a very strong yet wild child. He was a fighter for sure. Acnologia would honestly train Asta, as Asta was someone who would be determined to grow strong and strong, as he always wanted to be as strong as a person who Asta had seen as a father, aka Acnologia. Since ever since the man had pretty much raised Asta by himself, Asta had saw the man as a father and someone that he wanted to become as strong as. Now, like I say, Acnologia at this point is literally not the strength that he once was, but that does not mean he's not strong. The man is literally able to kick a boulder like it was nothing. He's literally able to literally rip trees from the ground like it was nothing. The man is far beyond regular human. And to Asta, the man was the strongest one around. As for Acnologia, it honestly surprised him how far he had actually, connected with the young Asta. As over time, he even began to acknowledge Asta as a son. However, they didn't mostly say that considering the fact that Asta was very stubborn and both of them would get into an argument each time, with Asta trying to show his father, like, oh, that he's, like, stronger or better than him, to which Agnologia would put down Asta very simply. As yes, all those good times would happen. Unfortunately, the good times don't last forever. The toll from Agnologia's past, as well as the power of age itself, will begin to take a toll on him. As eventually, by the time Asta was at the age of, I'm going to say 11? Yeah. By the time Asta was at the age of 11, Agnologia's time was running up. At this, it was at the dead of night where Asta would be running directly into the cave. He was carrying a bunch of water on his back as he used a basket. Come on, I'm almost there. He would shout as he begins to jump up, using his superhuman strength to literally jump across a bunch of trees until eventually landing near the cave, causing a crater to form underneath the ground. I'm here, he would say as he enters inside to see Acnologia, who currently right now was laying on the ground near a fire. At this, Asta would arrive as he ends up telling him that he picked up a bunch of shrubs and things that could probably help him, as Asta had used his scent to pick up things that he could tell were actually, helpful, like herbs and stuff like that, as he instantly begins to give Acnologia water while he begins to work on some type of medicine. At this, Acnologia would chuckle as he ends up telling Asta that it was okay, but Asta shakes his head saying that, nah, everything's gonna be okay once you get better, alright? I just need to concentrate. At this, as Asta begins to work on it, he would then suddenly gain a faintish greenish glow on his hands. As if you guys didn't know, which I actually had to search on the wiki for this one, Acnologia actually had healing powers. I did not know about this, but apparently he did. And for this what if, I'm going to give it to him. Because you know why? Because it's my what if. And also, Asta will be OP, but I'm going to make sure it's OP done right. But let's continue on. As Asta was using this healing magic, he would try to sort of like, make the herbs have a higher quality, so that way it can, have much more of a drastic effect. At this, Asta then began to, brew them up together, trying to make an antidote. But Acnologia sighs. At this, he tells Asta that he was always a stubborn one, to which Asta could already tell by the tone that he was speaking something was up. At this, Asta would of course shake those thoughts as he then says that he will be okay and that he just needs a little bit more extra time to, create an antidote. But Acnologia sighs. He tells Asta that it doesn't matter what he does and that his time was coming near. At this point now, Asta was already in tears as rain begins to fall from outside of the cave that they were living in. As Asta tells him that, that he could solve this. He could do it. After all, there's no way Acnologia can be taken down by something as common as a common cold. But what Acnologia had was not that of a common cold. It was that of old age, and all the tireless battles are finally catching up to him. His body can no longer support him. And literally, like, the man had been holding it up for multiple years now. It was his time. At this, Acnologia would look at Asta as he once again was working extremely hard. Tears were falling from his eyes. At this one, suddenly he would then raise his arm, albeit weakly, as he puts his hand on Asta's head. At this, Acnologia at this point was breathing heavily, as he could already tell his time was running near. As he would begin to give Asta his parting words. He would tell Asta that he was proud of him and that one of the biggest successes in his life was seeing Asta grow into a young, capable young man. And as much as he wished that he could see Asta continue growing up and continue being more mature, unfortunately, it seems as if his past sins are finally catching up to him. At this, Asta will look at his father as he already knew what he was talking about. Asta had, of course, Acnologia was not one to just beat around the bush. He told Asta about everything about his past, but Asta didn't really care. In Asta's eyes, Acnologia had redeemed himself. After all, he had raised him where he could have just left Asta in the forest alone to die. But now, Asta could already tell that all those battles were already having an effect on his old body, and at this point, it was too weak to continue standing. As by the point that Acnologia was done, he could already by this point, Asta can see the life literally like about to leave his eyes, as he once again holds on to the man that he's seen as a father and grew up with. As eventually, as Acnologia would look at Asta one last time, he would give him a smile, telling Asta to live the life how he wants it to be. At this, Asta can do nothing more but shed some tears, As soon as that being said, as the as literally thunder is screaming right outside the cave, the life in Agnologia's eyes will then flash away, as that was the end for him. As we're now doing a time skip. At this, we will now turn to the present where we see Asta as he was currently right now in front of the cave. At this, Asta would look at his childhood home that he had grew up in, as at this point, Asta had grew up to, I would say it's been like 2 years, yeah. It's been 2 years since Asta was here, and at this point, I believe it was finally time for him to leave. After all, it was what his father would have wanted. As Asta would look at it, he would then look down at the small gravestone that was right in front of him, as he would then walk towards it, kneeling down. Right there, Asta would see the name Acnologia imprinted onto it, as Asta would then look at the man putting his head on the slab, telling him that he will be alright, and that he will be going off now. As Asta would then look at the cave, he would then give it a smile, until eventually he would end up putting on the robe that his father once wore, which also had a necklace which was the fangs of actual dragons, as he would then put on a hoodie as well. At this, Asta would then begin to walk off, which at this point I believe I should explain Asta's appearance. His hair had grew out a lot, okay? I'll say his hairstyle had grew out to be similar to Agnologia's, like he had long hair, but instead of it being blue, I would say it's gray. Another thing was the fact that Asta, he was still wearing rags, considering the fact that, like I said, Acnologia was not really like one to stay around human civilization, and so far the only ones he really stayed near was just Asta. So you can't exactly expect Asta to have like high class, fancy ass clothes. But due to this, Asta would then be walking off as he would eventually continue on his own journey. So this is where, once again, we're having a time skip as we now appear to when Asta arrives. After traveling through multiple different lands, he would eventually end up arriving at a small village, Hage village. Now at this, Asta had decided to stay here for now, considering the fact that, in all honesty, he had no idea exactly where to go. After all, he hadn't exactly really been at the outside world, so you can very well expect him to be socially awkward. So at this, Asta finding really nothing else to do, he would just be sitting down, grabbing an apple, as Asta had been eating up from, the forest, picking up apples and other herbs and stuff like that, and he had been scarfing them down. Currently right now, he was just enjoying his time as people on the streets would just walk by past him, not even giving him a glance, as Asta would just calmly be eating an apple. So this is the human civilization, huh? Yeah, I could already tell that this is uncomfortable, Asta would think. But this is when suddenly he would then be approached by a man. As this is when we then see Father Orsi, who ends up approaching Asta. As he ends up asking him if he was here by himself or where was his father. Asta would look at the man with a look of distrust, but he would eventually end up calming down, telling him that his father was no longer with him. As he bites down on the apple, the man would actually, gasp as he apologizes to Asta. As he tells Asta if he had a place to stay or something like that. At this, Asta, says nothing more as he doesn't feel like he needs to relay any information to the man. As after all, Acnologia had taught Asta to keep himself on his toes. At this, however, Asta would actually be able to sense his magic as well as, give it a nice, because Asta had strong senses. He's able to give his nice sniff as he can tell that this man, he didn't sense any ill intent from him. As this is when Father Orsi actually begins to ask Asta if he would like to come with him to the orphanage. He begins to explain to Asta that over there, he can make a bunch of friends. He could actually, get some proper clothing. He could have comfort. He could have a bed. And he would explain all this stuff, but none of that really interests Asta until he eventually gets to food. Now, that was actually enough to cause Asta's stomach to growl, which caused Father Orsi to actually laugh, while Asta ends up patting his stomach, as he realized that he probably should have just eaten some more apples. But after all, hearing the prospect of getting new food, Asta was on board. As he is like, oh, really, dude? Okay, come on, let's go. I mean, he doesn't really say that, but he instantly begins to get, he's now more approachable now. As this is when Father Orsi would then hand out Asta his hand, to which Asta would then take it, as he would then take Asta to the orphanage. So we're once again moving forward. As if you guys don't know, this part is gonna have a lot of time skips. But moving forward, Asta was introduced to the orphanage and instantly began to get along with most of the kids there. At this, Yuno was still a crybaby as the events, I'm just going to say this, the events of, his pendant getting kidnapped, his pendant getting taken and all that stuff, it hasn't happened yet. But Yuno was a shy and still a crybaby. The other kids actually enjoyed Asta's company. While Asta, he was a little bit antisocial in the very beginning, he would eventually end up warming up to them. Another thing that Asta enjoyed though was the fact of the food. He would scarf down like ginormous proportions, shocking Father Orsi and Lily, as Asta would be eating something like, bro, 6 to 7 people need to eat, and he'd be eating that all by himself in a few seconds. Like that's not normal. But Asta, honestly, he was just like, I'm just hungry. That would be his only excuse to it. However, eventually though, as time would then pass by, Father Orsi would actually tell Asta and Yuno to go get some groceries, as it was finally time for, like, they needed to store up, because, it was snowing. So at this, Asta and Yuno would then walk out, as while Asta had made some, connections with the other kids in the orphanage, Yuno was actually semi, like, afraid of Asta, considering the fact that Asta, unlike the other kids, was honestly, like, this man was physically built, this man was way taller than in canon, and overall also had, like, this wild look, which honestly sometimes terrified Yuno. So while Asta was walking in front with, like, no care in the world, Yuno was walking right behind him, sending Asta some glances, but other than that, just kept walking. As this when suddenly, while Yuno was paying attention to Asta, he would then suddenly bump into a man. Sorry, he would say, as he then begins to pick himself up, only for the man to kick Yuno down, also knocking his pendant away from his neck, as he then says, "Hey kid, I'm gonna be taking that pendant now," he would say, as he then picks it up, grabbing the pendant from Yuno, as Yuno would then get up. "What? No, that's mine." But the man would then once again kick Yuno down, causing Yuno to cough up a little bit, as the man would then say, "Or what, kid?" Now at this point, Yuno was now in tears, as he couldn't really do anything, until a voice would then speak up. "Hey, give the pendant back." At this, both the man and Yuno would in turn, as they would then see Asta with his arms crossed, as the robe that he was on was really glistening in the wind. At this, the man would instantly see Asta, as at this point, Asta, well, I would say this is, the clothes that he wore were, well, they did not really change much, I would say, that, because, Asta was not really that comfortable wearing shirts yet, because, well, the kid was wild, like, come on now. But I will say that Asta did wear, like, an open jacket and all that stuff, which did make the man see that Asta was physically built, as well as the fact that Asta had, like, bandages on his arms, as Asta had trained, like, every single day. As well as the fact that Asta had some short pants on, and didn't wear any shoes. But either way, the man, although seeing that Asta was, like, a physically built child, he was not afraid of him. He then says, "Or what?" At this, Asta then gives him a grin, as he then says, "That's exactly what I wanted you to say." As vanishing, Asta would then appear in front of the man, punching him in the face, causing the man to be sent flying and crashing into the wall, as Yuno's pendant would then hit the ground. At this, the man would of course be in shock, as he would instantly be knocked out unconscious by the pain. As Asta feeling, feeling thrilled at a fight, would then say, "Come on, get up, let's go." At this, he would say this with a fierce smile on his face. However, after a few seconds, seeing that the man was not getting up, Asta would then lose, as he then says, "Weakling." As he would then walk over to Yuno's pendant, he would then pick it up as he walks over to him, as he then gives it to Yuno. At this, Yuno at this point was looking at Asta in, like, admiration, as Asta would then say, "Hey, you good?" At this, Yuno would then nod, as Asta would give him back his pendant, with Yuno saying a small and quiet thank you. At this, Asta just shrugs as he's walking away, until eventually Yuno ends up shouting out to him, "Wait a minute." At this, Asta sighs and says, "What?" At this, Yuno apologizes once again, as he then tells Asta that he was sorry because he was actually, semi-afraid of Asta, which is why he didn't really communicate with him as much as the other kids in the orphanage. As he tells Asta that he's sorry about it, Asta would just shake his head, saying, "Nah, it's fine. Even though I may not look like it, I can already tell that my appearance can be quite intimidating." At this, Yuno was of course glad at this, but also shocked that Asta would just be able to forgive him like that. As this when suddenly Yuno would then ask Asta if it was possible for him to become as strong as him. At this, Asta would then shake his head, saying, "Well, I don't know about that, but if you want to become strong, then just train. That's what I do." At this, Yuno would then look at Asta surprised, as this one suddenly he would then feel a new sense of determination, and he then tells Asta that he wants to become strong, and that one day he's gonna strive to become the Wizard King, he would then say. At this, Asta actually ends up laughing. "You the Wizard King, huh? I respect that. As for me though, At this, Asta smiles. As he then looks up into the sky, he would then shout out, "I plan to become the world's strongest," he would say. At this, Yuno would look at Asta in surprise, as this is when suddenly Asta and Yuno would then walk away with each other, picking up the groceries as they end up returning back to the orphanage. Following that day, Asta and Yuno's relationship, well, they became closer as they actually end up becoming like brothers, with Yuno asking Asta for training and Asta actually helping out Yuno. Now, don't get me wrong, Asta's appearance does make him look like some type of, like brute or like just a guy who's only has muscle on his mind, but that's not the only thing on Asta's mind. Asta's actually very smart. He does know some medical knowledge as he had been trained by Acnologia, which you guys don't know, he used to be a doctor for dragons. Another thing is the fact that Asta had also trained himself vigorously hard and he understands, like, he knows how to use the Dragon Slayer magic. I didn't know if I made that clear, but he does. So you guys can very well expect Asta to be using, his Dragon Slayer magic. As this is when we then run up on the grimoire ceremonies, where we see a bunch of just the regular commoners and the civilians, as they're all excited, while also the nobles were there, telling them like, oh, we're definitely gonna get a 4-leaf grimoire or something like that. While doing this though, Yuno was currently right now sighing as he ends up walking up into the orphanage, as he ends up looking up on the rooftop. Asta, get up! Today's the grimoire ceremonies. At this, we would then see Asta, who was calmly just laying there, as right beside him was like a bunch of apples that he had just scarfed down from out of nowhere. As he then gets up. I'm up, huh? Oh, it's that? Okay. As Asta would jump down from the roof, he would land down, making a small crater, as Yuno would just back away. Man, I'm never gonna get used to you doing that. At this, Asta then sighs and he then says, well, it was pretty simple. I trained myself in physical strength, while you've trained yourself more in magic. It's not really that surprising. At this, Yuno just sighs and he tells Asta to come along, to which they end up doing so. At this point in time, Asta is a now confident six. He's a confident a 6 foot. I'm gonna say 6'6". Yeah, I'm gonna say Asta's a confident 6'6". The man has a very muscular build. He also had learned to actually wear clothing properly at this point, as due to him getting pretty much scolded by Sister Lily each time he goes around in public, pretty much half naked with him wearing just shorts and that robe, he'd eventually end up learning how to wear shirts and all that stuff. But he also learned, he pretty much had caught up on the his normal human knowledge. Okay. But as that time grew though, Asta had trained in his magic as well. As let me just say this, Asta's magic is just ridiculous. Due to him being trained, due to him learning all the powers from Acnologia right before he passed away, Asta had learned about all the Dragon Slayer techniques. Now the only thing was the fact that the power of the Dragon Slayer, Asta needs to grow up with it. He needs to, make it grow. Alright? It's not like it's right out of the gate, he's just gonna instantly end up blowing up islands or something like that. So due to that, as Asta grew up, he continued training in his magic, as he ended up learning about all his different properties and all that stuff, while also ends up learning more about his, ability to heal, which also another thing to let you guys know, no one at the orphanage really knows of Asta's Dragon Slayer magic. That being the fact that Asta had realized that his magic was extremely destructive, and if he ever were to really use it nearby the orphanage, he could damn well destroy the whole place. I am not kidding. And that's not even him at full power. So at this, Asta would be currently walking with Yuno as they enter into the grimoire ceremony. As soon as they do, of course, the rest of the orphanage was there to support them as they scream out Asta and Yuno's name. As of course, all the nobles would be looking at them with scorn and all that stuff, especially Yuno, because the man has the face of a noble, but he's like a commoner, so yeah. Moving on. Either way, the elder then gives off his speech, which I don't know his name, so I'm just gonna call him the elder. Either way, he ends up giving off his speech, a long and boring one, to which Asta doesn't listen to, as eventually he ends up giving everyone their grimoires. Everyone would get their grimoire as everyone was excited at it. Some nobles got some 3 leaves, commoners also got them, as they were all excited for it. But this one suddenly a burst of greenish energy would then shoot off from one, as everyone would gasp, a 4-leaf! Oh, I hope it comes to me. At this is when one of the nobles would then speak up. What? No, commoner, it's gonna come to me, obviously. As everyone will be gasping, whispering, this is when suddenly it would then rush over to Yuno. Now at this, as soon as Yuno gets his hands on it, he would then scream out to the top of his lungs declaring that he will be the Wizard King. At this, everyone in the comments would applaud him, while of course, the the nobles would then give him that, angry look, considering the fact they salty as hell. Well, also, you look around to see that he was not getting one grimoire. Oh, what the heck? He was not getting a grimoire. Okay. And this will actually end up catching the attentions of the rest of the nobles, as they end up actually laughing at Asta, as they tell him, he didn't even get a grimoire or anything like that. To which the other ends up telling Asta that he can get one next time. And this also just shrugs, not like I really need it. As this is when suddenly him and Yuno would then walk off, as the grimoire ceremony would eventually conclude. Now, I'll explain to why Asta did not get a grimoire, but I'm going to explain that during the end, okay? But moving on. As Asta and Yuno are walking off, Yuno will be excited as he flips through the pages. He says, "Man, I can't believe I actually got a 4-leaf grimoire. Oh yeah, by the way, Asta, sorry you didn't get one too. It's kind of weird though. You don't really seem to really care though." At this, Asta just shrugs. I don't really need a book to define my strength. At this, of course, Yuno understands that, as Asta, he has done quite amazing things even without a grimoire. And he could already tell Asta would become someone extremely strong even in the future. This is when Yuno would then turn to Asta saying, "So, are you going to participate in the Magic Knight exams?" At this, Asta then looks at him as he then nods his head. "Yeah, not like I have anything else to do. Besides, Magic Knights are strong, right?" At this, Yuno would nod his head as Asta would then get a fierce grin. "Then I can't wait." As they're walking though, as Yuno and Asta were just chuckling at each other, this is when suddenly some nobles would then walk up to them. "What exactly you're laughing at, commoner?" At this, Yuno and Asta would then turn to him, as he would then begin to go on his bullshit, talking about, Yuno should give him the 4-leaf grimoire, saying that it should not be in the hands of some commoner. But this is when, before Yuno gets the chance, Asta would then look at them with fierce bloodlust and says, "Go away." At this point, the nobles are legit shitting themselves, as an enormous pressure begins to set in. What? But how? He's nothing but a commoner. He didn't even get a grimoire. How's he doing this? At this, they're not able to do anything, as also will once again give them an even more of a death glare, as the killing intent would rise as the pressure begins to go on tenfold. As Yuno at this point was also at this point begin to suffocate due to it, while the nobles at this point had been knocked out unconscious, literally feasting at the mouth. At this, also would release the pressure, causing Yuno to breathe as he looks at Asta. Just what the heck was that? At this, Asta would say, "My magic." At this, Yuno looks at Asta surprised and says, "But how do you have so much of magic when you have healing magic?" At this, Asta shrugs. Who knows? Now, if you guys want to know why exactly Asta does not tell him that he already has Dragon Slayer magic, again, I'll explain that during the end. But due to this, though, it was finally time for Asta and Yuno to leave, so now I'm walking off. However, this is when, in the corner, though, they would be unaware of the chain mage. Well, Yuno would not be aware, but Asta was. As the chain mage would be right there, he'll be legit sweating. How could he have so much magic? But the other one said it was healing magic, but it was so strong, deadly. He looked like he was gonna kill them. What the heck is that? At this is when suddenly, as Asta would be walking, he would then stop, causing Yuno to look back. What, Asta? This also give Yuno a slight grin. "You go on ahead. I want to go ahead and train for a little bit." With this, Yuno looks at Asta confused, but then shrug as it was just a regular Asta thing. As this is when Asta went and turns toward him. "You can come out now." At this, the chain mage will actually shake a little bit as he ends up walking out. Look, I'm not here for you. I'm here for your friend. That 4-leaf grimoire. He gets sold for a large amount of money, but this is when Asta would say, "I don't care about that. Listen, it's been a while since anyone have been giving me a challenge. It's been a while since I test my own strength. That's why you're gonna fight me." At this, the man looks at Asta shaken, but he then shakes his head and says, "Well, the other one said his magic was healing magic, so I should be able to win." This is when suddenly he then said he agrees to it. As this is when Asta also tells him and also ups the stakes, saying that if he won, he can even go after. He will even give Yuno's grimoire to him. At this, the man was of course surprised at this, but nods nonetheless. As this is when suddenly he will then open his grimoire, as multiple chains will then shoot out from it as they all approach Asta. Now at this, the man will look at Asta in surprise, as this is when, as soon as they get close to him, Asta would dodge and weave out of each one of them. As he then says, "Is that it?" At this, the chain mage was of course obsessed. This one suddenly bursting from the ground. Other chains would then appear as they wrap around Asta fully, as he then smiles. Huh. Look like you were talking big game. I guess all that magic was gone to waste, especially for a healing mage. Asta would feel the chains wrap around him tightly as they get tighter and tighter, as they feel like they're trying to completely squeeze him to death. But Asta would just sigh. Is this it? As with the flick of his, literally by flexing his muscle, Asta destroys the chains, destroying them completely. As he would then, stretch his neck a little bit. Alright, I'm bored. At this, the chain mage at this point was now sweating bullets. He then says, I surrender. At this, Asta then turns to me and says, oh, I'm sorry, I think you were confused. When I said fighting, I meant to the death. At this, the chain mage eyes widen. This is when Asta gives him a fierce look. As this when suddenly a bluish energy will then appear in Asta's arm, as the entire area begins to fill up with Asta's magic. Just what type of monster are you? At this, Asta goes ahead and looks at him. Not a monster, I'm a dragon. As this is when Asta would then blitz him, appearing right in front of him, as he lands a powerful punch to his fist, literally blowing a hole through him, as the powerful attack literally destroys the entire area that he was in. As by the time the smoke begins to settle in and it begins to disperse, the last thing they will see was literally the completely destroyed body of the chain mage, as his grimoire would be completely destroyed as well as with him. Pfft, weakling, Asta would say. As he looks around to find no one there, he will then walk off with a sigh and a bored look on his face. So after that, they would then train for a few months once again. Asta would mostly train in his Dragon Slayer art, as well as improving his healing magic course. As while this was doing so, eventually it was finally time for them to go to the Magic Knight exams. Now, I'm not going to go here and talk about the whole process of their training, because I really don't want to, and honestly, that's just going to take forever. So, and plus, I always had the bad habit of describing things way too much, so I really don't want to get to it. So we're just going to move forward to when it was finally time for them to go. Them saying goodbye to the orphanage with, of course, the Father Orsi telling them to go make Hage village proud, to which they promised to do so. As after a while of traveling, they arrive at the capital to where they get some food, look around the scenery, until they eventually arrive at the Magic Knight exams. At this, Yuno will be the first one to approach, as he ends up showing the man his grimoire. At this, the man looks at Yuno's grimoire and he gets shaken from it. A four-leaf? No way. As he looks at Yuno in surprise, as he ends up giving his grimoire back shakenly, as he tells him he's allowed to enter. At this, the next one to approach was Asta. Now, instantly the man would ask for Asta's grimoire, to which Asta just shrugs. I don't got one. At this, the man was about to tell Asta that he couldn't participate, but then a pressure began to set in as he looks at Asta, but he didn't know how to describe it. He felt on edge. He felt that whatever words he say at this point literally defies whether he lives or dies. At this, he then shakily says that Asta is allowed to enter, as Asta would give him a good nod. Would then give him a nod until he whispers a little bit into his ear, saying, "That was the right choice." As he then walks in there. At this, the man will be shaken up as the others will look at him confused until he then, shakes back and gets back into work. Just what type of monster was that? He'll be thinking. As Asta and Yuno end up walking in there, instantly, the others, every noble that was there would be, looking at him as, some of them would begin to whisper, saying, "What? I heard that one has a four-leaf. Yeah, but the other one, I heard he didn't have any grimoire." Really? That's lame. At this, everyone began to whisper about them and everything. As this one suddenly, one of the men would then be caught by an anti-magic bird, as began to swarm everyone and everything. As while this was happening, both Yuno and Asta were not affected by them. Now, just to let you guys know, Asta does have magic. He does. However, his magic is slightly different. But like I said, I'm going to explain all this during the end. As soon as all this was happening, of course, this is when a small anti-magic bird will actually land on Asta's head, while the others were literally too afraid to even approach this man, mostly due to the fact that he had a large amount of magic, but also due to the fact that his magic was fierce. At this, Asta would of course, feel weird about this bird, as he could already sense something was up about it. "And who might you be?" Asta would say as he looks at the bird. It doesn't say anything, but Asta would just scoff, looking back down. Eventually, though, this is when the captains would then arrive, as literally their magical pressure is so powerful it sends the rest of the birds flying. Now, while this was happening, though, this is when suddenly they also then hear someone like squeaking about something. As this is when he then turn around to see Finro and Yami. Captain, we should be there. We're late. We're already late. At this, Yami then says, "Hold up, all right? I just finished taking a dump. Let me let me adjust myself. Jeez." At this, Asta would be looking at them with a confused look, but he could already tell one thing. From the muscular build and already sensing that power, he could already tell that the man with the katana was strong. Interesting, he would then say. As this is when suddenly William Von Jins would then begin to announce the beginning of the Magic Night exams. At this, the first one being the fact of them having a broom, telling that this was the first test for them to actually levitate on the broom and see how good their control was. At this, some of them get extremely high up, others do not, and some of them don't even get off the ground. However, two of them caught the captain's eyes. Number one being Yuno, who is just calmly flying on his broom with a serious face. However, this is when suddenly the other one would then be Asta. At this, everyone was surprised at this, considering the fact that Asta did not even have a grimoire with him. However, he was just calmly levitating on the broom as he then looks at them. Really? At this, Yuno looks at Asta as he ends up scolding him, telling him that, he shouldn't say that. Asta, you can't say that. You have to be respectful to these people. At this, Asta will look at me and says, well, screw them. At this, the other captains end up hearing this and already, look at Asta with scorn. Well, except for, Yami, who ends up laughing as he then says, damn, that kid's got balls. As even Finro was literally holding back his laughter. Eventually, though, the second exams didn't go up, as this is when they were then doing some type of target practice, as they ended up having to hit and moving targets. Now, at this, Yuno ends up sending off some wind blades, while Asta, he ends up looking at this. Well, I guess I should show some of my power. As Asta ends up cracking his neck a little bit, this is when suddenly he then suck up a small amount of wind, as this is when suddenly, faster than literally anyone can see, the moving target would then be shot down by Asta right before they even got the chance. Wait, what? All of them would say, as literally Asta was just calmly there. He just sucked up a small bit of air and then shot out a small little beam that shot out from his mouth. At this, everyone was confused about what happened, but Asta did technically hit the target, so, he's good. At this is when suddenly the next part of the exam was pretty much the one-on-one fights. Now, this is the one we get into. At this, everyone go ahead and face off with each other, as Yuno had instinctively rushed over to Asta, as he wanted to challenge Asta, but not for the reason that you think. At this, as soon as Yuno approaches Asta, he would say, Asta, fight me. At this, Asta looks at Yuno with the confused look until finally he gives off a smirk. Alright. At this, Yuno then walks over as everyone makes space for them, as the first match between Asta and Yuno would then begin. Now, Yuno had trained himself vigorously hard. Although him and Asta were training with each other, they always had some light spars, but the thing was, Asta never really used his magic. Now, at first, Yuno had always thought that Asta's magic was healing magic, but for a while, he's been having a very odd suspicious of him. After all, Asta's strength and power was just far above, the norm, and Asta's literal feats were far above that of human. Then there was the fact that Asta had healing magic. Something that, the way Asta was built, no one would really expect that. It just didn't make no sense. And now, during the exams, Asta had literally shot down his target right before anyone even saw. It just made no sense to Yuno. And now he was finally going to get some answers. So right before they begin the fight, Yuno then turns to him. Asta, I want you to really show me what you got. Okay? At this, also looks like Yuno's surprised as he then gives him a smirk. So you finally catched on. At this, Yuno, of course, nods, as this is when everyone begins to set in on this fight, while most thinking that Yuno was going to win here. However, the captains were more interested on this battle, especially since Yuno had a 4-leaf clover. However, they were also interested in Asta, considering the fact that Asta, his magic was not really shown. Sure, there was a small instance, but they didn't even get a chance to see it. That boy, what magic does he have? Noza would ask, as this is when the others would then begin to explain that they had no idea. Yami was the one who was paying most attention to him. He had focused on Asta's physique, and he could already tell this man had trained himself. All right, he has shoulders bigger than most people's dreams. Oh my gosh, I suck at jokes. All right, let's just move on to the fight, okay? Starting off fast, Yuno will then shoot off a bunch of wind blades, as each one of them will then be shot off at Asta with very high speeds. At this, everyone would actually be surprised at this, as the way that Yuno's spell had appeared instantly. They were surprised by how fast he could just do it. His casting speed is off the charts. At this, the others would nod, as each one of these blades would then approach Asta. With most thinking that he was done, Asta would just scoff as he dodges each one of them with pure ease. Come on, Yuno, you can do better than that. At this, Yuno would nod, as this one suddenly multiple wind arrows would then form above Asta, as each one of them would then slam down to the ground, causing a ginormous mist to begin to take up the area. Now at this, Yuno would of course felt like he actually hit something, of course. However, when the smoke dispersed, Asta was nowhere near. What? Did he run away? At this, as everyone was actually thinking this, some of the nobles actually began to cackle. But this one suddenly Asta would then burst from the ground underneath. Not bad, Yuno, but you're gonna have to do a lot better than that. As this one also then landed a kick on Yuno's back, sending him flying, literally sending him flying to the other side of the arena, surprising everyone. As this one Yami then looks at the ground, as well as looking at Asta's hand. Did he literally just punch the ground and dug a hole? And he did it so fast. Just how strong is he? At this, Asta would look at Yuno as he gets sent flying, spinning like a blade, until Yuno ends up flipping over once again, landing swiftly thanks to his wind magic. I'm not done yet, Asta. As he then forms a bunch of wind blades, he will then shoot them at Asta once again, as Yuno tells Asta to take him seriously. At this, Asta will once again dodge these blades quite easily, as he then looks at Yuno, as Yuno once again charges up a ginormous amount of wind magic. I guess he really wants me to get serious. Oh well. What type of brother would I be if I didn't fulfill his request? At this, Yuno would then yell out a mighty cry as he then shoots off a ginormous tornado that begins to literally take up the entire arena, sending some people flying. Now, at this point, everyone thinks it's done for Asta, but they were wrong. As this one suddenly, the tornado would actually begin to get sucked into something. At this, everyone then see Asta speaking. Come on, Yuno. You should know better than to give me a big meal and expect me not to devour it. At this, everyone would watch in literal shock as Asta would begin to literally eat the wind tornado. This man is eating and scarfing it down like a sandwich. As by the time Asta's done, he'll go ahead and lick his lips as he then gives Yuno a fierce grin. Thanks for the meal. Now at this point, everyone was beyond shock. As literally everyone's like, what the fuck? How is that fair? At this, literally someone was screaming out hacks, codes, this man modded the game. As literally everyone was out of their mind, blown away. The captains were even more confused. Did he just eat that magic? At this, Charlotte would say, as this is when Vengeance would then speak up. He did. As this is when Asta would then turn to Yuno. He would then begin to glow his right fist. Yuno, you said you wanted to see what I got. I'll show you this. As this is when suddenly Asta's fist will begin to glow a bluish glow. As this is when Asta would then dash towards Yuno with a powerful smirk. Take this, Yuno. Dragon Slayer arts. Power of the end. At this, he then slams that fist directly into Yuno, or at least he attempted to. As this is when suddenly, in a blink of an eye, Yami would appear right in front of him. He will keep an arm to push Yuno away from the attack, while also using his katana infused with dark magic to block Asta's attack. However, to his shock, what the hell? At this, he would then suddenly be pushed back and actually be sent flying and crashing into a wall by Asta's attack, as literally the force wave from the attack was enough to literally send nobles and commoners flying, as crater would then form underneath Asta. As by the time that happens, smoke begin to set in, as the other captains would then, as this when Charlotte as well as Vengeance would then rush over to Yami, check on him if he was okay and everything. Although Charlotte was, being all tsundere because, she doesn't want to reveal her feelings. But either way, Yami would then be pulled out of the crater, of course, by himself as he then looks at him. Gosh dang, kid, were you trying to kill him? At this, Asta would look around as he would then see the destruction that he caused, as he then realized that he may have taken it a little bit too far. At this, Asta would then turn to Yuno, who was literally gaping like a fish. As Asta would turn to him, Yami would then burst out of the walls. He then tells Yuno that he had lost this fight. To which Yuno speaks up saying, yeah, I have no disagreements to that. So after that being said, Asta and Yuno were just there with, Asta trying to break the awkward silence as he apologized to Yuno, telling him that he did not really meant to go that far. But honestly, Asta was having a large amount of fun, and he could already tell Yuno had improved greatly. I guess Asta just got carried away and also just underestimated his own strength right there. At this, however, eventually, as the people begin to fight, eventually the exams would then come to a close. As this is when suddenly it was finally time for them to find out if they were going to go enter a Magic Knight squad or not. Some of them get hands, some of them don't, some of them get completely ignored. And this is when all that would change as Yuno would then step up. As soon as he does, Yuno would get all hands raised for him, as this is when he would then speak. I choose the Golden Dawn. At this, William Vengeance would then nod his head, as this is when suddenly, as Yuno was then done, also would be the next up. And no one raised their hands. But this is when suddenly Vengeance would then, stand up. He didn't ask Asta what exactly was his magic. At this, Asta would look at him, as he didn't realize that he was now on the spot here. And besides, Asta realized that at this point he already revealed his magic to people, so why the heck not? As Ian says, it's Dragon Slayer magic. At this, others were surprised at this, until suddenly people began to burst out laughing. Dragon Slayer magic? What is this guy, an idiot? Stop trying to make your magic sound cool, you're really not. As everyone began laughing, while others did not. And these people were the ones that got sent flying by Asta's attack, as that was no joke. At this, though, this is when Yami wouldn't step up, as he would begin to exude pressure. Hey, kid, you think lying would actually get you somewhere? You think by lying you're gonna actually enter a magic squad? At this, Asta would feel the pressure then set upon him, as everyone would sit there in bated breath, while Asta just scoffs. Please, I came here to fight strong opponents. And speaking of strong opponents, you all seem quite strong. I'll gladly take you all on if I have to. At this, Asta would say this with a fierce smirk. Ian says, my power is not something I need to lie about. It's something that I need to prove. And I'll gladly prove it to all of you. I'll take you all on. At this, Asta would say this with a smirk. As of course, Yami would continue putting up the pressure, while also begins to exude his own, which reveals itself to be way stronger. At this, finally, as both of them would get into a stare down, the pressure would then leave, as this is when Yami would speak up. You got balls, kid. Come join my crew. At this, Asta then speaks up. Sure. At this, everyone is baffled. Like, what? Are you kidding me? They were not expecting this. But honestly, the rest of the captains are honestly okay with this, considering the fact none of them are really planning to add Asta into it. After all, the whole idea of him having Dragon Slayer magic, no one's going to believe that. As this is when, of course, Nozel will make a comment saying, of course, common ruffians would go with each other. At this, Asta would then be taken by the Black Bulls, as the rest of the ceremony would then continue on, some of them getting into squads, some of them don't, until eventually it was finally time for them to leave. At this, both Asta and Yuno would give each other a bro hug, of course, as Yuno would then tell Asta that, one day they should go ahead and, go on a journey with each other and everything, to which, of course, Asta would, say that, he's down for that. Eventually, though, Yami ends up coming out of the bathroom and he says, finally. Alright, Finral, let's go. At this, Finral would nod, as Asta would hear Gordon talking to him, talking about, he's glad to have another member, and he's glad that Asta joined them, to which Asta then speaks up saying, cool, I'm glad to join too. Surprising Finral, as he then says, wait, you could actually hear him? At this, Asta then turns to him, you can't? Finral would shake his head, as eventually they'll arrive at the Black Bull's base, and this is where Asta then looks at it, as Yami would say, well kid, welcome to the lowest of the low. As we see Asta look at the base, he would then give it a fierce smile. Interesting, he would say. As this is where I'm going to end this part to the what if. That's right, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Honestly, thank you all so much for your support. I'm really glad to do this series, and I plan to, go ahead and enjoy it for while it is. Now, let me get into some explanations here, because I know some of you guys might be asking me something. Number one, why exactly did Asta not get a grimoire? That one, I'm going to make myself a pretty clear reason. So due to the fact that Asta ends up gaining magic, like the Dragon Slayer magic, from being trained by Acnologia, and thanks to the fact that Acnologia's magic is completely different, since the world of Fairy Tail and the world of Black Clover are, their literal magic is completely different. I'm gonna say due to the fact that Asta's magic is different, he doesn't really get a grimoire, but that's okay because literally Asta still has magic, just a different type. Another thing is the fact that people might be asking me is like, oh, like how is Asta gonna be like, flying on a broom and all this stuff? That thing is honestly due to the fact that Asta had gained so much control of his magic that he's able to manipulate it to how it is. So it's similar to Monoskin. But either way, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and head off now because this what if has gone on long enough. It's nearly a 1 hour what if, nearly. And honestly, thank you all so much for your support. By the way, can you guys like type down anything like what should happen in the series and anything like that, or just tell me down below like what do you guys think of it? What do you guys think of Acnologia's arrival? Since I know most people are gonna be commenting about that one. And overall, just that's really it. So once again, thank you all so much for your support. And either way, it's your host Hage here, and I'm gonna head off for now. Peace.